Hello. Let's deal a little bit today with solving vibrato problems with our students. I hope you've listened already to the demonstration of teaching initial vibrato, the basic exercises. If the student hasn't done these things, it's important that that's where it starts. Solving a lot of problems are the ability to control the width and the speed of the vibrato, and we've got to be able to establish that technique, that control of muscles in the jaw and so on. I gave a lot of information on how to do that. We do have a lot of fights on, again, an invisible process in our pedagogy. What is it that really is happening? What is it that's really being affected? I mean, is vibrato a fluctuation of pitch? Is it a fluctuation of volume? Is it a fluctuation of timbre? And you'll have people that will argue all sides of that. I'm here to tell you that it's a fluctuation of pitch, volume, and timbre. You can't vary one without varying all three. They're affected by each other. And you can prove that to yourself in a couple of ways. One is practice some slow vibrato with a tuner and watch the pitch. Listen to the timbre on the down part of the cycle. It has to change a little bit because we're not making any compensations for that volume change. There's a volume change. When you don't make compensation volume change, you get a tone change. If you are changing pitch, you're going to get a ebb and flow of the volume. So it all goes together. I think a good way to, I mentioned earlier that violinists have a pedagogy that we can look at. It's not internal and visible. We can watch it. If you look at a violinist on their hand, they're going below the pitch and back to the pitch, below the pitch, back. They don't go below the pitch and above the pitch and back to the pitch and below the pitch and back to the pitch and above the pitch. No, pitch, it's a variation of pitch that goes below and comes back to the pitch top. The top of those vibrato cycles is going to be perceived as our pitch center. There's just no way around that. So pitch center will be at the top of those cycles. I even got in a fight with one of my faculty members on my committee when I did my doctoral defense, who was sure that vibrato goes above and below and above and below. I'm here to tell you that's not true. And I had to tell him that as well that day and hope that he wouldn't flunk me. But there is no question the vibrato does not go above the pitch. But I sometimes find students who believe that and who are trying to go above the pitch. That's a problem. And that's one of the things that I occasionally have to correct. I think it's a bigger problem that I have to correct very often, that the vibrato is just too wide. It's too kind of obnoxious. Or maybe it's a little just in your face too much. The vibrato should just warm the sound, not take over the sound. And I think that a lot of this comes from having a sound that's not focused. If my sound isn't focused, the vibrato is going to have a lot of room to get in trouble because my focus for my sound is wide. And so then the vibrato has a lot of width to play around with. If I focus the sound really small, now the vibrato is going to conform to that width more. It's not going to go crazy. It's much more pleasant. The classical vibrato is very narrow. I think the big problem is that we've got students that are playing kind of a husky, flabby sound. I've got another chapter, I think, where we talk about getting the lean, clean sound, that focused sound, not that husky, fat, saggy kind of sound. Especially for tenor players, the bigger the horn seems like it's a bigger problem. But I'm always trying to get that light sound. And that light sound is when it's nicely focused. When it's nicely focused, the vibrato fits into that nicely and is quite narrow and therefore much more pleasant to listen to. And I'm always finding I have to fix that. I think one of the other big problems is vibrato goes below the pitch and it should come all the way back to the pitch, below the pitch, all the way back to the pitch. Sometimes it goes below the pitch, doesn't quite make it all the way back. Below the pitch doesn't quite make it all the way back. Below the pitch doesn't quite make it all the way back. And the effect of that is that, again, the top of the vibrato cycles will be heard as the pitch center. It's going to make me go flat. It's going to sound flat. So maybe the pitch is here. Sorry. But my vibrato does this. And it's usually going to go hand in glove with having my vibrato be too wide. My vibrato is not getting all the way back to pitch, and so the whole thing starts to sound a little saggy, flabby. So a lot of times this will be fixed by first fixing the tone. Get the sound focused, light, clean, and then the vibrato will be more contained, and then it's less likely to go below and stay below too far. It kind of wraps up into a similar answer for the whole thing. I think another thing that we need to mention is that how does vibrato coordinate with volume? And there's a couple of schools on this. One of the schools says the vibrato stays the same width the whole time. So I'm going to do a diminuendo and try to keep my vibrato the same. To me, that's not a pleasing effect. Now I'm going to play a diminuendo, and my vibrato is going to be the width of the sound. So as the sound gets smaller, the vibrato width is going to also get smaller. And then right at the end, I'm going to get rid of the vibrato and let it end straight tone. I think much more musical sounding to me. These things are drawn out pictorially, actually, in my book. So you can kind of check that out. And there's a few more comments there than what we're making. But the purpose of these YouTube videos is to demonstrate an actual sound, some of the concepts that are talked about in the book, so that you can better understand what I'm saying. There's another thing that I mentioned in the book that I think is worth talking about for a moment. I think my students are quite surprised sometimes on how I'll vibrato on a note that's actually very short. Maybe it seems like it's too short to be able to have vibrato. Maybe I'm playing a passage with 16th notes. Let's say it's this. So there's a little bit of vibrato subtle on a few of those notes. If they're not very long, I don't think the audience is going to sit there and say, oh, I think he's vibratoing. They're not even going to really notice it. But if I leave it out, there's something nice that's gone. It's a very subtle thing, but that little bit of touch of vibrato adds something that's just good. It's just, it's delicious. Anyway, sometimes it shows up. Okay, here's an example where I'm going to go to the fast part of that piece. The vibrato's got to go on those longer notes. Now, if I leave it out, I put a little bit there, but you see it's missing something. That little bit of vibrato is making it dance. It brings it to life. It gives it more vitality. I think we have to also, my last note there. Okay, that doesn't have a good ending. I gotta have a good ending. It's got to taper. But while it's tapering, I'm putting a little taste of vibrato on it. Without any vibrato on it, it's kind of stark, kind of naked. I I just put a little touch on there. So I think that's worth, obviously the vibrato needs to start right at the front of that note because it goes by so quickly that if it takes you time to get it started, it's not going to be there at all. You won't ever hear it. Here's another example. That last note. I'm going to put a little tiny vibrato on that. If I leave it off, it doesn't have the same life. I think I probably made that point. I think that fairly short notes can receive a taste of vibrato, and it will just bring a little more life to the line. Vibrato, of course, is very different from one style to another, and this is where it's critical that there's some listening happening. I would want the student, as we talked about in a different chapter, different video, to do all the vibrato exercises with the jaw moving va 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 va, 16th notes with the metronome, 60 up to 92, getting that width and speed control so they can apply it in these musical situations in various ways. I just switched to my jazz setup. If you're using vibrato in a jazz way, you handle things differently. Straight tone, vibrato on the end of it. A little different than our classical vibrato. A lot of times we don't put it at the front of the note. Sometimes I do. I sometimes use it that way. It's a little different though. It's going to end up being a little bit more wide probably. Slightly. We call it a terminal vibrato. We put it on the termination of the note. So I hold off, then it's kind of wide, not too fast. Just looks like almost like I'm chewing. It's quite more dramatic, but only for a second. So after we gain the control and understanding of the vibrato, then I think we've got to do a lot of listening, copying. It's through emulation that we learn the subtleties of how to apply vibrato in different situations. And just to review, I think the biggest issues are understanding that the vibrato goes below the pitch, not above and below. And then I think we have to understand that it goes below and then it comes all the way back. It doesn't get stuck on not quite getting back. We also have to understand that it's not too wide, which gets sickening. It needs to be quite narrow. Those are some of the things that I tend to correct a lot. And in classical vibrato, I often hear the students start the note with no vibrato, and it takes a little while to get it started. That's really more of a jazz effect. It's not that it can't ever be used classically, but if it's the norm, then I always correct that. I want the vibrato to usually start at the front of the note. Right as the note starts, the vibrato starts. So I do have to correct that a lot as well. So there's a few things to think about. So I hope this is helpful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video.